now. All right, so my name is Declan Walsh. This is my informative speech. Here is my note card that I'm using one side of. And if everybody in the audience, here is my ID. If everybody in the audience could just go one by one and just say your name and age.
All right, I'm River Wells. I'm 23.
I'm Andrew Taramikan. I'm 20.
I'm Parker Maddox. I'm 20.
I'm Dana Cassidy. I'm 22.
Claudia Cassidy, 58.
Perfect. So I'll get my speech, and there'll be a 2-minute period for questions at the end. So thank you. Abandoned city blocks filled with once beautiful buildings. Crumbling factories overlooking desolate cityscapes. Failing infrastructure laced with lead. For many Americans, this is the modern face of globalization and deindustrialization in the country. It's a bitter, charged topic that helped define the 2016 presidential election and has been at the thrust of many of the most significant political conversations of the last decade. With that, it can be difficult to find a balanced and nuanced perspective on this topic. So with my speech, I aim to provide an overall history of the topic, along with addressing its pros and cons. My background and my academic concentration in geography has given me a good perspective on this topic. And in congruence with my overall goal of demystifying globalization, I will begin with a definition. So globalization refers to when a corporation or any other entity expands their operations to an international scale. And with the United States being a country in the New World founded by Europeans, globalization is at the heart of American history. But the most recent development, the United States' shift from a manufacturing-based economy to a service-based economy, is largely due to globalization. So looking back at the Second World War, the United States embraced manufacturing. During the conflict, according to a 2001 Prospect.org article, there was a 96% increase in manufacturing production. And this prosperity continued into peacetime. So during the post-war period, the United States was the undisputed manufacturing king of the world. 30% of its GDP and more than a quarter of its workforce were employed in the industry. And growing metropolises like Detroit, St. Louis, and Pittsburgh owe their existence and growth to the industry. But a late 70s wave of neoliberalism popularized concepts like free trade and deregulation, ultimately ceding a competitive advantage to growing East Asian markets. This was hastened by the past approval of the North American Free Trade Act in 1992, along with the disillusionment of the Soviet bloc and the rise of the internet. And by 2009, just 11% of Americans were employed in manufacturing. This decline and the boogeyman-like conception of deglobalization in the American conscience can make it seem like a wholly negative phenomenon. But there are a number of positives to come out of the globalization too in America. One of the most glaring is the cultural imports that the United States has enjoyed. In particularly media and culture, many of our most popular dishes, films, and TV shows have foreign origins. And this is especially evident when looking at the rise of anime. The Japanese animation that among Gen Zers, 96% are familiar with, and more than half have a positive inclination towards, per Statista, a marked difference from just 2 generations ago. American businesses and consumers have also benefited from globalization. Two of the country's largest firms, Nike and Apple, have enjoyed 296% and 855% growth rates between 2007 and 2017, respectively, according to a 2017 Yahoo Finance article. I'm speaking more broadly, in an ESIA paper, 11 to 13% of U.S. Annual economic growth can be attributed to globalization, and these economic benefits are often passed down to consumers as cheaper manufacturing costs allow companies to trade cheaper goods. However, there is many worry that these economic benefits are not being shared equitably among the American population, as millions have had their lives impacted or ruined by globalization. For example, according to a 2020 article from The Conversation, 3.75 million jobs in America have been lost to globalization between 2001 and 2018. And 75% of these have been lost in the manufacturing sector. This has hit the Rust Belt region particularly hard, a region that was built on the manufacturing industry, and aforementioned cities like Detroit, St. Louis, and Pittsburgh have lost more than half their populations. Union work has also suffered in this period too, as according to a study from the Institute of International Economics, there was a 44% decrease in union jobs between 1977 and 1997, and union jobs correlate positively with pay and other economic benefits. So these consequences have left many in the Rust Belt swapping out well-paying, sustainable manufacturing jobs for low-paying service work. So having an understanding of the history behind globalization and its pros and cons allows us to see this debate unfold right in front of us. The laptop or other device you're using to watch this on is only possible through the advent of recent globalization. And many of the devices you see when you look around also come from that as well. However, it's very likely that you or many people that you know have been personally impacted by job loss and other economic downturns associated with globalization. So next time you engage in this conversation or hear about it on the news, you should be armed with both the history and nuance to have a productive conversation about the topic. So that's the end of my presentation. If there are any people that just have any questions about it.
Yeah, I have a question. I wanted to know what you think the biggest threat or challenge there is to globalization, or what the biggest events upcoming for it that you see.
I think there's a palpable political pushback to globalization that's really important to reckon with. So like I mentioned before, the 2016 election, there was a big push among those in that Rust Belt region of pushing back against globalization and trying to embrace the more manufacturing-centered domestic economy that was really strong in the 50s. So I think a growing more isolationist movement is an already observed consequence and potential disruptor to globalism. Is there any more questions?
Yeah, I have a question. In your everyday life, in your personal experience, where do you usually see the biggest effects of globalization? Maybe on like a minor scale, or maybe even a major one, from where you are.
I think a big, growing up in the New York metropolitan area, I think just the types of media and the types of cultures you're exposed to are one of the biggest daily interactions with globalization that you'll have. Just going to Times Square, for example, there was a recent One Piece event that kind of took over the area, and that kind of represents how diverse of a media diet and just our overall culture has become as a result of globalization. But from the local cuisine to the entertainment, there's just a lot of different cultures that have been embraced. Right, seeing no more questions, I think that should just about do it. I really appreciate you guys taking the time, and thank you.